Imagine waking in the dead of night, your throat seized by an invisible grip, a shadow looming like the angel of death itself. Cold steel flashing in the moonlight, severing not just flesh, but the very soul of your sins. This isn't a nightmare. It's the silent wrath of a man stripped of his voice, yet screaming justice through blood. In the haunted fields of Antebellum, South Carolina, one enslaved soul became the hand of divine retribution. Dare you listen to his unspoken fury? In the dim-lit vaults of the South Carolina Historical Society, where dust dances like ghosts in the filtered light of arched windows, a forgotten envelope lies sealed with wax that has cracked like old bones over time. The year etched on its surface, 1847. A handwritten scrawl across the front warns in faded ink. Contents unfit for mortal eyes. May the Lord have mercy on those who dare unveil man's darkest deeds. Researchers who stumble upon it feel a chill snake up their spines, as if the air itself carries the weight of unspoken horrors. Within those brittle pages, yellowed by the relentless march of decades, unfold the sworn testimonies of 8 men, plantation lords of the Low Country, each recounting a fate so grotesque it defies the genteel facade of Southern aristocracy. Castrated, every one of them, with a precision that whispers of surgical skill honed in secrecy, each assault striking like lightning within a day of their own unspeakable violations. No thief in the night, no random act of chaos. This was judgment, methodical and merciless, delivered by a specter they never saw coming. The authorities of the time buried these accounts deeper than a grave, for to acknowledge them was to admit the rot at the heart of their empire built on chains. But echoes persisted in the oral traditions of the freed, passed down in hushed tones around flickering fires after emancipation. They spoke of Silas the Silent, a field slave whose tongue was silenced, whose cries were stolen, yet whose hands became instruments of a higher justice. A man who moved like mist through the marshes, his gray eyes piercing the veil between sin and retribution. His story isn't mere history. It's a biblical parable cloaked in the humidity of Carolina swamps, where the wages of sin weren't death, but a living hell of emasculation and shame. Themes of divine wrath weave through it, reminiscent of the plagues upon Pharaoh or the angel's sword in the Garden of Eden, guarding innocence with unyielding fury. Before we plunge into the abyss of Silas's Odyssey, pause for a moment in this shadowed archive of the soul. This channel is your portal to the underbelly of America's past, where we exhume the skeletons textbooks dare not name. If tales that grip your heart with icy fingers and force you to confront the demons of humanity resonate with you, subscribe now. Join the legion of seekers who crave truth over comfort. And tell me in the comments, from which corner of this fractured world do you watch? Your city, your state, let your voice echo in the digital void. Our journey begins not with the blade, but with the forge that tempered it. The year is 2003, and a determined graduate student named Elena Vasquez pores over microfilm in a Charleston library, her fingers trembling as she unseals digital scans of that forbidden envelope. What she uncovers isn't just facts. It's a spiritual earthquake, shaking the foundations of her understanding of justice and vengeance. The testimonies, scrawled in quivering hands, detail attacks spanning from 1836 to 1847, each victim a pillar of plantation society, each left alive to bear the mark of their transgressions like Cain wandering the earth. Elena's notes, later published in an obscure journal, describe her nights haunted by visions, silent figures gliding through moonlit fields, the metallic tang of blood mingling with the sweet rot of magnolias. She writes of feeling a presence, as if Silas's mute spirit watched over her shoulder, urging the truth to light. To grasp the genesis of this chilling saga, we must immerse ourselves in the Low Country of 1836, a realm where heaven and hell intertwined in the tidal rhythms of the sea. Picture the vast coastal plains of South Carolina, where rivers like the PD and Waccamaw snake through emerald marshes, their waters brackish and teeming with life. Sunrises paint the sky in hues of molten gold, reflecting off rice paddies that stretch like mirrors to the horizon. But beneath this poetic beauty lurks a symphony of suffering. The relentless buzz of mosquitoes, thick as fog, carrying malaria's feverish kiss. The croak of bullfrogs masking the distant crack of whips. The air heavy with the scent of wet earth and human sweat. Plantations, this landscape like feudal kingdoms. Grand mansions with columned verandas overlooking fields where enslaved Africans and their descendants bend under the sun's merciless gaze. Rice was the golden idol here, its cultivation a brutal alchemy, turning human toil into white wealth. Enslaved workers waded knee-deep in fetid water, their skin prickling from the slime of leeches, backs aching from hours of stooping to plant or harvest the sharp-stalked grains that tore flesh like tiny daggers. The heat wrapped around them like a shroud. Humidity so thick it felt like breathing soup, while winters brought bone-chilling rains that seeped through ragged clothes, turning mud into a clinging enemy. Diseases stalked these fields, dysentery twisting guts, yellow fever painting eyes jaundice yellow, claiming lives as indifferently as the auction block claimed families. Charleston, 40 miles eastward, glittered like a jewel in this crown of cruelty. Cobblestone streets lined with pastel townhouses, where ladies in silk gowns attended balls under crystal chandeliers, and gentlemen debated literature in oak-paneled clubs. Churches with spires piercing the sky preached sermons on divine order, conveniently ignoring the biblical echoes of Exodus in the cries from the countryside. Yet this facade concealed an interconnected web of terror. Plantations linked by dirt roads patrolled by armed riders, where the enslaved outnumbered their captors 20, 30 to 1. This imbalance bred paranoia, manifesting in iron chains, overseers' lashes that striped backs like tiger hides, and punishments that scarred both body and spirit, brandings that seared flesh, amputations that crippled, all to instill a fear deeper than the ocean tides. Into this cauldron of contradiction, around 1815, a boy named Silas entered the world on the Rutledge plantation near Georgetown. His mother, Patience, was a field hand whose calloused hands knew the rhythm of the hope better than lullabies. Records, cold ledger entries in leather-bound books, note her as strong of limb, fertile, a commodity in the eyes of her owner. Silas's father? Unnamed, but the boy's mulatto features, light skin, gray eyes like storm clouds, betrayed the sin of forced union, a white man's seed planted in soil he claimed as his own. In the rigid hierarchy of bondage, such children were paradoxes, enslaved by maternal blood, yet mirrors of their oppressors, often drawing envy from pure-blooded kin or predatory gazes from the elite. The slave quarters where Silas spent his infancy were hovels of despair. Ramshackle wooden shacks clustered like forgotten prayers, roofs leaking torrents during storms, walls thin enough to hear neighbors' whispers or sobs. Floors of packed dirt harbored fleas and vermin, while families huddled on straw pallets, privacy a myth shattered by the overseer's boot. Separations were commonplace. Children ripped from mothers' arms at the crack of a gavel, sold south to cotton fields or west to unknown fates. The emotional wreckage was profound. Grief suppressed in a silent rage, love guarded like a flickering candle in wind. Yet resilience bloomed in these shadows. Elders weaving African folktales with Christian hymns, songs hummed low with coded calls for freedom, communal pots simmering stews of scavenged greens and river fish. Here, the spirit endured, a testament to humanity's unquenchable fire. By 7, Silas toiled in the fields, his small hands blistering on tools too large, learning the cadence of labor under the overseer's watchful eye. Plantation logs from 1822 list him curtly, Silas, mulatto boy, light duties. By 10, he bore a man's burden, his body hardening like forged iron. Oral histories, captured in 1930s by WPA interviewers, elderly voices cracking with memory, paint him as an enigma. That child Silas, he didn't chatter like the others. Quiet as a grave, with eyes that swallowed the world. My great aunt said he remembered every wrong, every lash, like scriptures etched in his mind. Folks thought he saw spirits, the way he'd stare into the distance. The Low Country's brutality was legendary, even among slave states, amplified by the Denmark Vesey Uprising of 1822, a thwarted rebellion in Charleston that sent shockwaves through white society. 35 black men dangled from gallows, their bodies swaying like grim pendulums, a warning etched in blood. Laws tightened like nooses. No literacy, no unsupervised gatherings, patrols thundering through nights on horseback, stopping any without passes. Religion, once a refuge, became surveilled. Preachers monitored to ensure sermons exalted submission over liberation. The air thrummed with tension, a powder keg where one spark could ignite inferno. Silas navigated this repression into his teens, his silence not yet absolute. Then, in October 1828, at 13, catastrophe struck. Plantation records note a doctor's visit. Slave boy, approximate 13 years, laryngeal trauma, vocal cord severed. Etiology unknown. Monitor, a ledger addendum, in bolder script, Silas incapacitated post-discipline. Expected recovery partial. Discipline, a euphemism veiling atrocities. Perhaps a noose tightened too long, a boot to the throat, or deliberate mutilation to silence a defiant tongue. Whispers suggest worse. A violation masked as punishment, the kind that shattered more than voice. From that day, Silas could only grunt, whisper hoarsely, his words strangled like vines choking a tree. He became Silas the Silent, a wraith among the living, less threatening to some, profoundly eerie to others. His presence evoked the biblical mute prophet, observing sins with eyes that judged like God's own. The Rutledge plantation employed the task system, daily quotas, hoe this row, dig that ditch, and free time after, though exhaustion often claimed it. This sliver of autonomy allowed gardens blooming with okra and collards, fish trapped in woven nets, small trades for coins. Silas, however, invested his evenings in vigilance. His muteness rendered him invisible. People spoke freely in his shadow. He mapped the overseer's habits, the drunkard's stagger, the lecher's nocturnal prowls. He timed patrol routes, noting gaps where moonlight pierced unchecked. He noted alliances among owners, their visits laced with ulterior motives. And he learned the darkest secret, the right claimed over enslaved bodies, women and boys alike, a sin as old as Sodom, veiled in silence but reeking of damnation. The first reckoning descended on a sweltering August night in 1836, humidity clinging like guilt. Nathaniel Grayson, 32, lord of a neighboring estate, awoke to dawn's light filtering through lace curtains, his wife's scream piercing the air like a banshee. He lay in a pool of crimson, sheets twisted in agony, castrated with a cut clean as a surgeon's scalpel. The bedroom, door bolted from within, windows shuttered against the night. No scuffle marks, no footprints in the Persian rug. Only the metallic scent of blood and the faint echo of controlled breaths in his memory. Grayson, pale and trembling, muttered of a hand clamping his mouth, steel glinting, then oblivion. Sheriff Benjamin Carr arrived on horseback, his badge glinting under the sun, interrogating with fists and threats. Enslaved workers endured whippings, their backs blooming red welts, but yielded no confessions. Grayson's wife swore no one entered the house. Servants confirmed quarters locked at dusk. The case faded like morning mist, rumors swirling. Vengeful runaways, abolitionist phantoms. Omitted from reports, the prior day's loan. Silas, bordovet for mille repaish, toilet till dusk. Then confined to a shed. Grayson visited at 10, lingering half an hour, emerging disheveled. Silas followed, gait stiff, expression a mask. Returned at dawn. He resumed fields, mute as ever. Grayson never linked it. Admitting the shed's purpose would expose his lust, a breach in the code of Southern honor. Sins of the flesh were tolerated in shadows, but naming them invited divine scrutiny, like Adam hiding from God. Life trudged on, rice swaying in breezes, but Silas's gray eyes held a new gleam, Retribution spark. 18 months waned, February 1838 bringing frost that crunched under boots. Thomas Wright, 41, church deacon and father of four, was discovered in his detached office by the overseer, door barred inside, body slumped over ledgers in a halo of blood. Castrated identically, he awoke to pain's inferno, memory blank as fresh snow. Sheriff Carr noted parallels. Locked rooms, precise wounds, no assailant. Panic rippled through planter circles. Rebellion? Vendetta? Arrests followed, interrogations brutal, releases grudging. Unspoken. Wright's recent Georgetown trip, renting Silas for carpentry. 3 days of labor, nights in a tool shed. Second evening, Wright entered, tarried. Silas departed next day. Attack followed. Unthinkable. A mute slave plotting such? Enslaved were beasts in their eyes, incapable of strategy. But in quarters under starlit skies, whispers stirred. Silent Silas. He sees the sins, brings the Lord's blade. A legend birthed, laced with fear and awe of a man channeling divine justice. His silence a sermon on endurance and wrath. As seasons turned, the pattern deepened, each assault a verse in a gospel of vengeance. Silas's story transcends mere revenge. It's a meditation on sin's harvest, where the oppressed become angels of accountability. In the Bible, God uses the weak to confound the mighty. David's stone, Moses' staff. Silas's knife? A symbol of reclaimed power, cutting away the roots of oppression. His muteness evokes the still, small voice of conscience, ignored at peril. Empathy swells for him. Imagine the boy, voice stolen, body violated, soul forging steel in solitude. Dread builds. What if justice delayed erupts like this? Curiosity pulls. How did he evade, plan, execute? Reflection lingers. In our modern chains, inequality, abuse, does Silas's ghost still whisper warnings? Expanding the canvas, consider the psychological layers. Plantations weren't just physical prisons. They were mental labyrinths, where trauma layered like sediment. Silas's observation became his weapon, silence his shield. Sensory details amplify. The creak of floorboards under stealthy feet, the metallic snick of a blade, the victim's muffled gasp echoing biblical lamentations. Spiritually, each castration mirrors circumcision's covenant, twisted into judgment, severing the lineage of sin. Redemption? For victims, perhaps in suffering's forge. For Silas, in acts that reclaim dignity, though its soul's cost. The Low Country's ecology mirrors this. Tides ebbing and flowing like fate, marshes hiding secrets in their depths. Alligators lurk, symbols of primal justice, snapping with impartial jaws. Mosquitoes whine a chorus of unrest. Silas moved through this like a prophet in wilderness, his actions a chilling testament to resilience. As whispers grew, so did the net of fear among enslavers. Patrols doubled, locks reinforced, but shadows lengthened. The second incident cemented the myth. Silas wasn't victim. He was avenger, his silence louder than thunder. In enslaved circles, songs evolved, coded lyrics praising the quiet reaper, blending African rhythms with Old Testament fire. Historian Elena Vasquez, in her thesis, posits Silas as a folk hero, his tale suppressed to preserve the myth of benevolent slavery. But truth, like buried seed, sprouts. This reconstruction, drawn from archives, orals, ledgers, paints a portrait not a monster, but man pushed to divine extremes. Pause here, viewer, feel the weight. The air thickens with anticipation. What follows in this saga of silent fury? But remember, history's horrors teach. Ignore injustice, and retribution finds a voice, even in silence. As the veil of secrecy thickens over the Low Country, the year 1840 dawns like a reluctant confession, the sun rising blood-red over rice fields that glisten with dew. Or is it the sweat of fear? By now, for pillars of plantation power have crumbled under an unseen blade. Grayson, Wright, Talbot, and Prescott, names once spoken with deference, now whispered in terror. Each assault mirrors the last, a ritual etched in shadow. Chambers bolted from within, windows sealed against the humid night, no shattered glass or splintered wood to betray intrusion. The wounds? Inflicted with a surgeon's grace, or perhaps a butcher's mercy, clean, deliberate, leaving the victims alive to marinate in their agony, their manhood stolen like forbidden fruit from Eden's tree. The air in those rooms hangs heavy with the coppery tang of blood, mingling with the faint scent of candle wax and polished oak floors, now stained eternally. These men, disparate in age and estate, Grayson the young heir with his sprawling acres, Wright the devout deacon hiding vices behind hymnals, Talbot the aging widower clutching his wealth like a miser, Prescott the ambitious newcomer building empires on broken backs, shared no overt bonds. Yet geography wove them into a fateful tapestry, all within a 20-mile radius, their lands interlocking like veins in a body poisoned from within. The rice economy bound them, tidal rivers carrying barges of harvest between their docks, mutual debts and alliances forged in Charleston's smoke-filled parlors. But beneath the surface, a darker thread connected them, sins committed in the dead of night, violations that echoed the biblical abominations of Sodom, where power twisted desire into domination. The planter elite, once lounging on verandas with mint juleps in crystal glasses, now paced their halls with lanterns flickering like uneasy consciences. Fear seeped into every crevice. The rustle of leaves outside a window could summon visions of a phantom intruder, the distant hoot of an owl, sounding like a harbinger of doom. Pistols, loaded with powder that smelled of sulfur and brimstone, rested under pillows, their cold barrels a false talisman against the unknown. Extra locks clanged into place, iron keys turning with a grind that echoed through empty corridors. Overseers multiplied, their whips cracking sharper, drawing blood from innocent backs in a desperate bid to quell rebellion through terror. The slave patrols thundered through the darkness, horses' hooves pounding dirt roads like judgment's drumbeat, lanterns swinging to pierce the gloom, interrogating any soul caught in the open with questions laced with threats. Yet the onslaught persisted, erratic in rhythm but unerring in execution, like the plagues upon Egypt. Unpredictable, yet unmistakably divine in their targeting. What the white lords overlooked, blinded by their arrogance, was the invisible current flowing between plantations, the rental of skilled labor, a profitable undercurrent in the sea of bondage. The Rutledge estate, Silas's domain, had honed this trade, dispatching workers like tools lent between neighbors. And Silas, with his carpenter's hands, callous from sawing pine that smelled of fresh resin, nails driven with rhythmic hammer strikes that echoed across fields, became a frequent envoy. His silence rendered him unthreatening, a mute automaton in ragged trousers and sweat-soaked shirt, eyes downcast under the brim of a tattered hat. He arrived unremarked, tools slung over shoulder, and vanished into tasks, mending fences where thorns snagged flesh, framing barns that creaked under summer storms. On select estates, not all, for his justice was discerning. He toiled by day, muscles straining under the sun's fiery gaze, the air buzzing with dragonflies and the distant chants of field songs. Nights brought assignment to outbuildings, sheds redolent of hay and rust, corn cribs with slatted walls letting in slivers of moonlight. Locked in, or so they thought, padlocks clicking shut with a finality that mocked their security. But in the witching hours, certain owners crept forth, shadows lengthening across manicured lawns, crickets falling silent as if in reverence or dread. Their visits, brief, brutal, the creak of a door, the shuffle of boots on dirt floors, grunts muffled by the night. Silas endured, his gray eyes, stormy pools reflecting inner tempests, betraying nothing. Then, task complete, he returned homeward, wagon wheels rumbling over rutted paths, the horizon swallowing him like a secret. Within 48 hours, retribution struck. The perpetrator, a wisp in the ether, slipping through defenses like the Holy Spirit through locked doors in the upper room. Victims awoke, or were found. At dawn's first blush, sheets crimson, bodies racked with pain that seared like hellfire. Wives' screams pierced the morning mist, servants rushing with basins of water that steamed in the chill, doctors arriving on lathered horses, their bags clinking with instruments that could mend flesh but not souls. Investigations sputtered. Sheriff Carr, his face weathered like old leather, scribbling notes by lantern light, questioning with a voice gravelly from tobacco. But leads evaporated. Jurisdictions overlapped like tangled vines. Communication faltered amid pride and prejudice. The Gazette printed terse accounts, ink smudged on broadsheets hawked in Charleston streets, veiling details to staunch panic, lest the masses sense vulnerability in their betters. In the quarters, where lamplight flickered on dirt floors and families huddled under threadbare quilts, a parallel narrative unfolded in coded veils. No overt declarations, no written manifestos, for literacy was a hanging offense, but glances exchanged over communal fires. Silence is pregnant with meaning. An elder might murmur a proverb from African roots, twisted with biblical spice. The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Whispers circled Silas's name, not an accusation, but the shadow man, the quiet storm. An ancient voice, captured in 1930s recordings, quavering with age, thick with gullah cadence, recalled, "We felt it in our bones, chilly. Them white folks reapin' what they sowed." Silas? He ain't speak, but his deeds hollered louder than thunder. Scared us too, like Fasten the Almighty Hisself. You don't cheer the lightning. You respect it, pray it pass you by. This subterranean knowledge pulsed like a hidden river, nourishing spirits parched by oppression. Enslaved women, their bodies bearing scars of unwanted touches, backs striped from resistance, wombs heavy with forced legacies, spoke in metaphors. The reaper comes for the rotten crop. Yet celebration was tempered. Each attack invited reprisal. Patrols descended like locusts, torches flaring orange against the night, cabins ransacked, possessions shattered, pots clanging to the ground, blankets torn. Whips sang through the air, drawing whimpers suppressed into gritted teeth, blood mixing with earth in a sacrificial rite. So wisdom prevailed, observe but utter not. Silas embodied this duality, a specter even among kin. Motherless since 1830, when fever claimed patience in a delirium of sweats and prayers, he dwelt solitary in the quarter's edge, his palate sparse, meals taken alone under stars that watched impassively. No bonds formed, his muteness a chasm, face a mask carved from stoic wood, eyes delving souls like a confessor's gaze. Joshua, a field companion with hands gnarled like oak roots, shared in later years. Silas? Broke deeper than his throat. Worked till bones ached, rice blades slicing skin, not a peep. Overseers grinned at first, docile nigger, they spat. But them eyes like gazing into abyss, seeing your sins staring back. Well, he fixed on a white man. 'Twas like Jonah's wail, deep, drowning dark. The Rutledges, oblivious in their mansion's glow, crystal chandeliers tinkling, silk gowns rustling, prized him, profitable asset, rentable for silver that clinked in coffers. His voicelessness? A boon, no tales, no plots, no screams to haunt their dreams. Irony divine, vulnerability forged invincibility. By 1842, the tally climbed to 6, Finch and Hammond joining the damned. Finch, rotund and red-faced, found in his study amid ledgers soaked red. Hammond, lean and pious, in his bedchamber, wife's hysterics summoning neighbors. The Mercury thundered editorials, printed on presses clacking rhythmically, demanding action. rewards in gold. Militia boots marching dusty roads. Governor's decree echoed from Capitol steps, but probes faltered. Victims convened in shadowed parlors. Cigar smoke curling like doubts, voices hushed. Yet candor eluded them. Admitting nocturnal sins would shatter honor's facade, like confessing to Baal worship in ancient Israel. Better endure emasculation's hell than societal scorn. This omerta shielded Silas, his method a masterpiece of patience. Mapping mansions during daylight labors, noting creaky floors, hidden latches, patrol lulls where owls hooted unchallenged. Psychological undercurrents deepened the dread. Guilt festered in victims' isolation, mirroring Adam's shame post-fall. Empathy stirs for Silas, the boy violated, voice severed, soul alchemized into avenger. Curiosity gnaws. How did muteness amplify cunning? Reflection beckons. In chains of any era, does suppressed rage birth such reckonings? Then, a fracture. Dinah, house servant on Hammond's land, 34, twice sold like chattel, her skin bearing faint scars from childhood separations. Proximity to power poisoned her peace, overhearing quarrels in velvet-draped rooms, witnessing cruelties behind closed doors. That fateful night, 1842's chill seeping through cracks, she stirred from slumber in her kitchen alcove, chamber pots porcelain cold against skin. A sound, faint as a prayer, footfalls on stairs, deliberate, testing each tread's groan. Survival screamed retreat, but intuition pulled her forth, candle flame dancing shadows on walls papered in faded florals. Peering up, silhouette etched in gloom. Lean, purposeful, ascending to Hammond's sanctum. A turn, light glancing, Silas, carpenter of days past, escaped his shed's confines. Door yielded silently, unlocked. Treachery or fate? He vanished within. Dinah retreated, heart pounding like tribal drums, mind awash in memories. Hammond's predations selecting victims with market stall nonchalance. Justice or peril? Dawn brought moans, chaos, wife's wails, doctor's hurried steps, blood's metallic reek. Questioned, Dinah's sealed lips, but knowledge burrowed like a thorn, festering through seasons. 1843's November brought the 7th. Daniel Merrick, tyrant of Waccamaw shores, his 40 souls trembling under inventive torments. Thumbscrews twisting flesh, stocks creaking in sun, lashes numbering like biblical stripes on Christ's back. Silas arrived for barn raising, hammers echoing, sleeping in corn cribs' musty embrace. Third night, Merrick's visit, shadows engulfing. 9 days hence, task done, Silas departed. Merrick discovered an office, precision wound amid prophet scrolls. 7 now, pattern glaring, yet obscured by silos of silence. Victims' cabal murmured theories, but shame blinded. Silas, the nexus, glided unseen, his legacy a chilling gospel. Sin's debt demands payment, divine or mortal. In marshes mist, his spirit lingers, a reminder, justice, though delayed, cuts deep. As the shadows of 1847 lengthen over the low country's labyrinthine waterways, where cypress knees rise like ancient sentinels from brackish depths, Silas the Silent evolved from phantom reaper to a figure of profound, almost prophetic finality. His method, refined over 11 years of calculated fury, becomes a symphony of stealth and symbolism. A carpenter's ode to justice, wielding tools not for creation, but for the surgical dismantling of sin's architecture. Picture the plantations at dusk. Lanterns flickering in grand windows like uneasy stars, the humid air carrying the scent of blooming jasmine mixed with the earthy rot of tidal mudflats. Locks click shut across doors and sheds, their metallic echoes a false hymn of security, while patrol's hoofbeats fade into the cricket-chirped night. Silas, confined in outbuildings that reek of sawdust and linseed oil, manipulates these barriers with the ease of a man who has turned vulnerability into art. Simple padlocks, rusted from coastal salt, yield to makeshift picks fashioned from nails or wire scraps, tools borrowed from his daytime labors, their clink muffled by rags. Entry into the mansions demands divine patience, a virtue Silas embodies like Job in his trials. By day, as he hammers beams or planes wood under the blistering sun, sweat tracing rivulets down his scarred back, the rhythmic thud echoing across fields where chained souls bend in unison, he observes with the intensity of a watchful seraph. Which window sashes sag, admitting a blade's thin edge, which doors hang on hinges worn by years of neglect, their latches loose as unkept vows. Keys dangle from overseers' belts or hide in drawers glimpsed through open parlors, their shapes memorized like sacred runes. Plantation homes, for all their columned grandeur, verandas draped in wisteria, interiors aglow with beeswax candles casting golden halos on mahogany furniture, harbor vulnerabilities born of complacency. Skeleton keys, universal in their design, can be duplicated with wax impressions or filed duplicates, hidden in tool chests amid chisels and augers. Once breached, Silas glides through corridors like the spirit of retribution from Revelation, his bare feet silent on Persian rugs that muffle steps, avoiding floorboards that groan like confessing sinners. He knows the household's pulse, servants quartered in distant wings, their snores a distant chorus, wives in opium-laced slumbers, laudanum vials glinting on bedside tables, their breaths deep and dreamless under embroidered quilts. Bedrooms await, heavy with the scent of lavender sachets and unwashed linens, moonlight slanting through shutters to paint bars across sleeping forms. A cloth, pilfered from medical kits, damp with chloroform's sweet, cloying vapor, stolen during unguarded moments, presses over mouths, eliciting brief thrashings before oblivion claims the wicked. Then, in the hush broken only by the tick of mantel clocks, Silas unveils his instruments, scalpel sharpened to razor keenness, forceps gleaming coldly, acquired perhaps from a doctor's discarded set or bartered in secret from sympathetic hands. Where did this mute artisan glean such anatomical precision? Whispers suggest shadowed studies, overheard consultations in plantation infirmaries, or forbidden glances at medical tomes during repairs and studies lined with leather-bound volumes. The act itself, swift, blood contained in basins or rags, a cut that severs not just flesh, but the lineage of lust, echoing the biblical eunuchs who guarded harems, or the self-mutilation of Origen in pursuit of purity. Murder tempts not. Silas seeks living monuments to sin's cost. Men left to wander their estates as hollow shells, their gazes haunted by reflections in silver mirrors, voices quavering in church pews where sermons on forgiveness ring hollow. This emasculation mirrors divine castration of pride, a permanent scar on the soul, ensuring no further violations taint the innocent. Empathy surges for Silas. Imagine the weight of repeated desecrations, each a nail in his cross, forging a resolve as unyielding as Golgotha's wood. Dread mounts. What toll does such vengeance exact on the avenger? Curiosity probes. How does silence amplify strategy? Reflection lingers. In a world blind to certain sins, does personal justice become the only path to redemption? Yet Dinah's secret, buried like a thorn in fertile soil, germinates into action by early 1844's chill winds, when frost etches patterns on cabin windows like frozen prayers. At 35, her frame worn by years of scrubbing hearths and serving platters laden with venison and rice, she seeks Reverend Thomas Clayton, a beacon in the moral fog, his sermons in clabbered chapels subtly decrying slavery's yoke without igniting outright rebellion. The chapel on Hammond's land, pews of rough-hewn pine, air scented with beeswax and hymnals' musty pages, sunlight filtering through stained glass depicting the prodigal son. Dinah, in her calico dress frayed at hems, kneels before the altar, voice a whisper carrying the weight of witnessed horrors. She unfolds her tale cautiously. No names at first, just shadows, a figure ascending stairs, silent as Elijah's whirlwind. entering locked realms to dispense judgment. Hints of motive, violations in locked sheds, sins unspoken but inferred, like the rape of Dinah in Genesis, where silence breeds vengeance. Clayton, bespectacled and scholarly, his frock coat threadbare from travels on muddy roads, grapples with revelation. His conscience, honed by abolitionist leanings whispered in private correspondences, recognizes not crime, but cosmic balance, the oppressed rising as God's instrument, akin to Moses smiting the taskmasters. Why now? Dinah's reply echoes prophetic urgency. More coming, reverend. I see it in his eyes, like fire shut up in bones. Maybe knowing sparks change. Defying his era's chains, Clayton withholds from sheriffs, embarking instead on a clandestine quest. Horseback journeys between estates, Bible and saddlebag as guise, conversing in fields or quarters under pretense of salvation. Stories flow like hidden springs. Silas's name surfaces his mutinous avail over trauma. Nocturnal visits to sheds, powers abuse cloaked in night, a pattern of divine equity with a mighty fall low. But in surveillance's web, Clayton's probes snag attention. Summer 1844 brings summons to Georgetown's oak-paneled hall, where concerned citizens, planters in linen suits, cigars puffing acrid smoke, interrogate with veiled threats. Augustine Sheffield, eyes cold as river stones, intones, "Your inquiries trespass beyond souls, Reverend. Remember your calling, or forfeit it." Clayton retreats, or feigns to, committing truths to journals in cryptic shorthand, pages filled with ink blots like tears, hidden in desk drawers. Unearthed in 1998's estate auction, amid dusty relics, these provide unvarnished chronicle. Silas, Rutledge's chattel, voiceless from boyhood's outrage. Unspeakable, even here. Repeated defilements, seeing silence as consent. His response, a terrible symmetry. "Lord, I cannot judge. The law hangs the lamb while wolves feast." Unbeknownst, Silas persists, his form thinning like a candle burned at both ends, gray eyes deepening into abyssal voids. Elders' recollections. He faded, body a shell, spirit aflame. Near him felt like graveside vigil, alive, yet gone. Rentals continue, silver clinking for Rutledge, Silas ferried like cargo, tools clattering in wagons over rutted paths. March 1847 heralds the 8th. Jonathan Caldwell, 47, legislator ensconced on Black River's fertile banks, his 60 souls toiling under tyranny's shadow. Mansion gleams with crystal and silver, fields yielding rice fortunes, but quarters reek of despair. Whips cracks, deaths from exhaustion staining soil. Silas arrives March 3rd for renovations. Overseer's house rising from foundations. Quarters mended against leaks. Workshop assigned. Wooden walls, barred window, lock heavy as sin's chain. Strickland, whip coiled at belt, secures nightly with double checks, threats growling like thunder. Caldwell's gaze lingers predatory. Second night, birthing violation in candlelit gloom. Disheveled exit, Silas statue still. Pattern recurs, bi-weekly assaults, observed in silent quarters where breaths hold. Strickland bolsters locks, guarding not victim but vice. But Silas alters script, extended stay birthing opportunity. At 32, weary of vengeance's grind, soul eroded like riverbanks, desperation surges. March 24th, Caldwell enters, completes desecration, turns to depart. Silas strikes, hammer arcing, skull crack echoing like judgment's gavel. Caldwell crumples, bound with rope coils, gagged rag muffled. Candles blaze ritualistically, illuminating tools gleam. No haste, deliberate dissection, pauses stretching eternities, eyes locked in silent sermon, terror reflected, comprehension dawning. Reversal absolute. Helplessness tasted, humanity stripped. Finished, tools cleansed, Silas unlocks, strides into night. Past mansions glow, quarters watchful eyes, to river's edge. Dawn finds him there, bloodied hands, impassive as Moses by the Red Sea. Strickland, discovering Caldwell's ruin. Moans piercing dawn. Hunts finds Silas unmoving. Armed approach. Silas's gaze. Void incarnate, chilling marrow. Eighth known, perhaps more shrouded in shame. Share this chill. Like, subscribe for buried truths. Arrest swift. Irons clank on limbs. Shed confines while fate's deliberate. In the frantic hours after Jonathan Caldwell's agonized discovery, his workshop transformed into a blood-soaked confessional, candles guttering in pools of wax like spent vigils. Panic ripples through the Black River plantation like a storm surge. The air, thick with the metallic reek of blood and the acrid smoke of hastily lit lanterns, carries screams that pierce the pre-dawn hush. Servants rush with basins of steaming water, their faces pale masks of suppressed terror under the overseer's barked commands. Caldwell, bound and broken, is loaded onto a wagon, his moans muffled by laudanum as horses gallop toward Charleston, wheels churning red clay in a mud that clings like guilt. Surgeons in a dimly lit hospital, instruments clinking on silver trays, ether's sharp scent mingling with carbolic acid, work feverishly to staunch the flow, preserving life but not wholeness. He survives, as did the 7 before him, condemned to a shadow existence. Manhood severed, a living emblem of Retribution's precision, his body a testament to the soul's irreversible wounds. Word spreads like wildfire through the low country's tangled web of roads and rivers. Whispers in Charleston parlors, urgent letters sealed with wax, riders thundering between estates under magnolia canopies heavy with dew. For the first time in 11 years, the veil tears. This assault, brazen and witnessed, links irrevocably to the phantom strikes that haunted the elite. Sheriff Benjamin Carr, his face etched deeper by a decade of futile pursuits. Nights poring over maps by flickering oil lamps, the weight of unsolved riddles bowing his shoulders, arrives at Caldwell's gate, dust swirling from his horse's flanks. A suspect in chains, tangible, mute, unresisting. Hope and dread commingle in his chest, the humid air pressing like an unspoken confession. March 26th, 1847. Georgetown Courthouse, a squat brick edifice with iron-barred windows casting grid shadows on flag floors. The interrogation chamber, sparse, airless, smelling of stale tobacco and fear sweat. Silas enters shackled, heavy irons clanking against a floor ring, his frame gaunt yet unbowed, gray eyes pools of impenetrable calm. Involuntary rasps escape his ravaged throat, echoes of a boy's stolen scream, but no words. Arrayed against him, Carr, deputies with hands hovering near pistols, District Attorney Harrison Felder in starch collar, and Reverend Thomas Clayton, summoned for his fragile bridge to the enslaved soul, his Bible clutched like a shield. The transcript, sealed in that fateful 1847 envelope, pages brittle as autumn leaves, ink faded yet indelible, unfolds a drama of revelation. Carr's voice, gravelly from years of command. Did you attack Jonathan Caldwell? Castrate him. Silas nods, deliberate, eyes unwavering. No evasion, no plea. Have you done this before? The others. Another nod. The room's air thickening like gathering storm clouds. How many? Hands rise, fingers splayed twice. A chill descends, palpable as winter fog, off the marshes. What? Clayton, sensing the impasse, offers paper and pencil, tools of forbidden knowledge. Silas shakes his head. Literacy's chains bind tighter than iron. Yes or no probes pierce the silence. Clayton's tone gentle yet probing, like a surgeon's careful incision. Did these men hurt you? Nod. Force themselves upon you. Slower nod, the weight of decades in that motion. All 8. Affirmative. Beginning when you were young, when your voice was taken. Nod. Continuing with each rental. Nod. Clayton pivots to Carr, voice trembling with moral fire. Sheriff, this is no mere criminal. Systematic violation, 2 decades of it. Retaliation, not madness. Silence crashes like waves on hidden shoals. Felder counters coldly. No defense in law, Reverend. Property cannot retaliate. He'll hang. Yet Carr, gaze fixed on Silas, murmurs revelation. The pattern. He was loaned to each. We blinded ourselves. Didn't track rentals because truth would indict us all. Felder pales. A trial spotlight would drag nocturnal sins into court. Testimonies exposing respectable men renting not just labor, but bodies. Violations veiled as prerogative. Humiliation for victims. Spark for unrest among the chained masses. Better intune the truth. Agreement crystallizes. Document confession vaguely. Rebellious disposition. Omit motives. Execute quietly. No spectacle. No martyr's gallows inspiring whispers in quarters. Clayton dissents in spirit, visiting Silas's cell twice in the shadow days before April 15th dawn execution. Dungeon dank with mold and despair, chains rattling softly as Clayton sits, offering silent communion, prayers murmured into void. Second visit. Anything for history? Silas seizes pencil, hand quivering like wind-tossed reeds. He draws. A boy's face, mouth agape in silent scream, hand clamped over, encroaching darkness, 8 stark crosses etched deep as wounds. Clayton preserves it in his journal, a relic of raw testimony, crosses symbolizing not just victims, but reclaimed agency. 8 reckonings, fractions of endured hell repaid. Yet fate intervenes. April 13th, Silas found lifeless, dangling from braided blanket strips. Official verdict, suicide. Inconsistencies whisper murder. Constant guard, time needed for braiding, bruises suggesting strangulation's grip. Silenced forever, perhaps to avert public unrest or spare elites further shame. Burial, unmarked plot in enslaved cemetery, now lost beneath subdivisions and time's indifferent march. No stone, no epitaph, only Earth's quiet embrace. The 8 endure as ghosts in their own lives. Caldwell resigns legislature, sells out in 1849, flees to Virginia's hills, dying 1856 amid obscurity. Grayson, first marked, withers unmarried till 1861. Civil War's thunder heralding the system's collapse he enabled. Others scatter or seclusion-bound, injuries festering reminders, like Cain's mark, branding sin's harvest. Rutledge Plantation burns in war's fury, 1865. Union torches consuming grandeur, land parceled, people scattered seeking kin amid Reconstruction's fragile dawn. Descendants linger in low country, threads to Silas frayed. Clayton departs 1852 for Pennsylvania's freer air, journals guarded by daughter, too explosive for publication. Donated centuries later, unearthed amid dust. The sealed archive slumbers 150 years until Michelle Torres, 2003, fingers tracing wax seals in hushed reading rooms, revives it for dissertation. Not isolated, myriad resistances obscured, agency denied to preserve myth of docile bondage. Published 2006, sparking debate, glorification or illumination. Undeniable. Endemic violation birthed hidden rebellions. Today, no marker scars the soil, no plaque on Georgetown's museum courthouse, now celebrating milder histories. Revolutionary valor, architectural grace. Plantations reclaimed by kudzu and forest, suburbs erasing footprints. Yet in Gullah communities, oral flames flicker. Silas's specter avenging graveside, caution of pushed souls, or imperfect justice claimed in desperation. Victim? Villain? Or indictment of a system birthing monsters for men. Debate endures. Righteous wrath outside law? In humanity's denial, can conventional judgment apply? Silas embodies thousands unnamed. Resistance is erased, suffering statisticized. His emergence, rare breach in erasure's wall, preserved by Clayton's conscience, Torres's persistence. Truth, terrible, demands remembrance, not for glorification but reckoning. Foundations of present echo these patterns. Understanding guards against repetition. Viewer, what lingers in your soul? Justified? Alternative, just as possible in chains? Comment below. Conversations unearth buried humanity. Subscribe for more exhumed shadows. Bell for alerts. Share to confront truths. Behind statistics, lives, sufferings, choices forged in desperation's fire. Until next descent into darkness. Question, learn, remember.